Right, welcome to the Lift, Laugh and Life podcast. Now, my guest today is Dr. Imran Kahn, Transform Now, obviously, as you can see behind his beautiful face there on the camera. We're going to talk about loads of different topics. Obviously, before this clip, I will have introed you and gave everyone a little bit of a rundown of you from my retrospect. But to be honest, the first thing I wanted to say is, first of all, thanks for being on the show.
Appreciate it.
We're going to talk about.
My mom says I've got a beautiful face, so that's good.
We're going to talk about a few different things. Now, first of all, I just want to the 1700 burpee challenge that I did on Christmas Day. This man here, probably the most generous man you've ever heard of, donated £500 of his own money to get me up there. So it took us on Christmas Day 4.5 hours to do burpees. So, I mean.
Yeah, I didn't think you would do them too much. I want to put £1,000 in just to see you suffer.
So that was for a great cause. But I wanted to start by just basically you introducing yourself to the podcast. Obviously, the listeners will be very varied in terms of if they're into fitness, if they're not, how in-depth they are into fitness. But introduce yourself and tell us a bit about how you got into being a doctor and into the fitness industry, because obviously that's what you now specialize in.
Yeah, well, I'm not a GP, just to get that clear. I'm a PhD, and I originally started off in physiotherapy and rehab. From there, I went on to health management, sports science, worked abroad for different foreign agencies, as in I fitted artificial limbs. So I've been to 7 war zones. So, just to add on, nothing to do with this, but if anybody thinks war is fun, it's never fun. Maiming children, artificial limbs, people using hands and arms, etc. So I spent quite a few years doing that. From there, I had a big break where I was asked to work with a big international rugby team, one of the biggest in the world, which was the sort of big break. So I worked with them on performance.
Can we talk about who that was at all or not? Not allowed that one. I know we've got to be careful with a few different clients.
What I would say, they're like black clothes.
I like that.
Yeah, but it was like a real big sort of break. And then so I worked with performance, making athletes better, with all these sort of years of experience from nutrition. And not that I'm a nerd, but sort of literally I've spent 20 odd years at university from a PhD, and I'm currently doing a second PhD on anabolic steroid performance and longevity, from nutrition, sport nutrition, sports science. You get a whole wealth of knowledge. And then when you work with a lot of professionals, you pick a lot of knowledge up from them. Knowledge is always growing. What we knew 10 years ago is fairly obsolete today, especially in fitness and science. And from there, I started working with fighters, bodybuilders, powerlifters. Then we started getting involved with things like weight cuts, then post-injury working with athletes, and then right at the top end, simply making athletes better than they are. Now, we've put the same science into the normal civilian public, the normal people. So you just make a person better than they are, you just optimize their health. We were lucky enough in 2019 to win the UK Fitness Awards for Science and Innovation. And
amazing.
The key thing was that we were able to put this high level of science down to a normal level. You and I, the normal guy on the street, help them lose weight, help them balance their hormones, keep their vitamins up, very specific rehab, and basically get them going. So that's essentially, so this journey started off 30 years ago, and like all journeys, who knew it was going to? I mean, if you'd asked me 25 years ago that I would have worked with world boxing champions and UFC guys and Premiership footballers and billionaires and people like yourself, I would have said no chance. Like this is I'm going to end up somewhere in the hospital. Come on, love, move your arm up and down, or move your leg, or something like this. I mean, it's just how the journey went, and
I think that's amazing. We're going to talk about, obviously, I have had a private conversation with you, and you've told me about household names that are definitely in some blockbuster films that I'm not going to mention and stuff like that. But I was amazed at some of the teams, some of the individuals that you had working with. But now we're going to go into that and what you sort of do with specializing that. But first of all, another thing that I was very impressed with was obviously when I first met you in person, I was surprised how big you were. And obviously I'm a big lad. So me saying that, obviously that I am normally the person that gets that. But you had a powerlifting background, right? And well,
unsuccessful, but
unsuccessful. Yeah. So
I mean, what I realized, and it comes down partially to drugs in sport, I realized at a very, very young age, I was never going to be world class. I'd be good enough for top sort of British and possibly scrape, you know, the Europeans and maybe an odd crappy competition where lots of people haven't turned up, they've got the flu, they didn't turn up. I may do it. But you know, I've lifted some good weight, 230 bench, you know, 350 dead, 300 plus squat, 100 kg bicep curls, which I can still do at my age. But
100 kilo bicep curls.
Yeah. So
that is obscene.
But what you also do realize, there's levels to everything. So, for example, when at the recent UK Strongman, and you look at some of the competitions, I mean, I saw a guy do a 140 kg bicep curl like it was nothing. So, you know, we've always got to, you know, aspire to the best we can, but also understand our limits, our physical limits. And we are not all going to become Eddie Cole. We're not all going to break world records. And we are not all going to become Mr. Olympia. We're not all going to do 1,500 burpees.
Yes.
10 for me, I think that would be it. I'll start crying. But there's a limit to everything. And I think in the sport, we're discussing the fitness. For example, the CrossFit, people take the piss out of CrossFit. It's an absolutely, you know, you've got functional strength. You can run, you can cycle, you can lift weight, you look good, and you're not like hugely built where like just going for a 2-minute walk is difficult for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of my close friends at the minute, that is one of the side effects when you come into bodybuilding, isn't it? You are at times of the year getting to the point where almost walking is a struggle, which is essentially the basic functional life. But obviously one of the things I want to make clear for this podcast episode is we're not going to be by any means promoting anabolic steroids and stuff like that. But I think that it's a topic that I definitely wanted to speak about, and I wanted to get you on because you are the best person I've ever met in the last 7 years to give a little bit of an honest insight. I don't think by any means you are sort of promoting it, but at the same time, you're very realistic in the sense of it is going to happen, and I'm going to try and keep people as healthy as possible if they do it with some sort of advice. Now,
the reality is, in this day and age, especially of social media, especially of body image, accessibility. You see, when I was 20, which seemed like a long, long time ago, you wouldn't even know where to buy anabolics from. I had no idea.
So
you can just log on.
Do you think social media has pushed people into steroids a lot more? Did you see when Instagram first came on the scene, did you see a massive boom in steroids?
What we've seen over the years, there's 3 distinct patterns we've seen. One is when people train, they're posting their pictures up. Okay. Now, you want to look good when you're posting your picture. So we've all seen it in gyms with a mini tripod, with a mobile phone. And some people who's living in it, that's how they do it, that's fine. But what we see is essentially that body image. We have to look good. We want to get those likes. Secondly, the sheer accessibility of it. Now, Boston Lloyd died 3 or 4 days ago. He was the pioneer, and rest in peace. But he was instrumental in social media stars, bodybuilders, athletes to discuss their cycles on the internet and what they were using and how they were using and the quantities they were using. And he died at 29. Now, he knew what he was doing. He's passed away. His choice, fine. But all the youngsters, and I've probably had 30 people contact me since he's passed away, that they were taking these absurd cycles, absurd doses. Now, he's passed away. He's over. Very sad for his family and his fans. But the damage left behind is the hundreds of people who took his advice.
Yeah.
And this is a consequence that nobody sees. Now, this week, tragically, 2 people have died this week, which I know of, and they're not famous. They weren't TV stars. They weren't bodybuilders. They weren't powerlifters. They didn't have any celeb status. Just normal people in the gym. They both died of heart attacks. There's one current guy I know who's in a coma, and a guy from last week, he had a huge stroke, lost vision in his eye, and blood pressure was through the roof. You'll never hear about these people. You'll never hear about them because they're not famous. And this is the consequence of it. It's literally become, you see, also coaching now. If you go to a coach, certain coaches, they will give you the steroids and they'll tell you how to take them and you'll get big.
Mm.
Is that necessarily right for you health-wise? You see, because I come across as a party people. Oh, this is the guy who's ruining our dreams. This is the guy who's stopping us getting massive. He's stopping us getting henge. He doesn't want us to have a six-pack because we have to give you a health perspective. We have to.
Yeah.
I can't say to somebody, hey, take this, there's no side effects, because yes, there are side effects. It's as simple as that. There will always be a side effect, be it from acne, to oily skin, to hair loss, to an enlarged heart, to stressed kidneys, to enlarged prostate. There will always be a side effect. It's the luck of the draw what side effect you have.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned before briefly, one of the topics that I wanted to speak about today was obviously it's Boston Lloyd and is it Isaac Gavadel? Am I saying that right? Obviously, they passed away within the last 10 days. And if anyone wants to go and research them, obviously, they are very credible bodybuilders in the industry. And those are the ones that are going to catch people's attention, but it's not just those as well. And obviously, when I was at a young age, I thought, you know, you want to get in shape to look a little bit better. And straight away, you start watching Pump and Iron and you start watching the films. I was a very, very loose bodybuilding fan in terms of the Kai Green, Phil Heath era, but probably didn't know people who were actually on the scene that weren't really like sort of top 3. But my question to you was how bad is the abuse of steroids in the fitness industry? And obviously,
you see, this is again, if we break down the category, you have a professional bodybuilder. You have, and I'll mention his name, Bob Waterhouse is completely natural, 100% natural. Nobody believes it, but he's 100% natural. Great physique. Now, people don't train like bombers. They don't eat like bombers. They don't spend those hundreds of hours in the gym like bombers. Now, the easiest thing to do is to take some testosterone, 1 ml a week, and you put 7-8 kg on. You don't need to eat well, you don't need to train hard. You will put the weight on. It's the easiest thing to do. Now, for the vast majority of people, they'll be fine. And people will often say you blow these numbers up out of proportion. Every death is not out of proportion. It's somebody's son, somebody's husband, somebody's partner, father. It's not out of proportion. So I don't buy the argument at all. I don't have that at all. Now, 119 people died in 2019. 119 people. Now, we get statistics from the database and we have access to all of the NHS records. So when somebody goes to a doctor for testosterone or I've been using steroids, I have access to all of that database.
Right.
And this is from my own research. I also have access to the database in the States. We also have access to every death certificate where the use of antibiotic steroids be written on there. In many cases, it's not. If you've had an enlarged heart and you've had a cardiac incident and you've died, it may be attributed to the use of steroids. It may have been led to the use of steroids, but the death may be written as a heart attack. Now, things like strokes, we've seen an increase in strokes in young people. And this is nothing to do with the COVID jab, by the way. So a lot of people say, oh, this is why I'm giving the figure for 2019, not 2021. Now, if we look at strokes in young people, the blood will thicken up and they're much higher risk of a stroke. Now, what you have is like a perfect storm. It may be 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000, but your blood is thick, you've taken pre-walk, you've took a pre-workout, you can't sleep at night, you took a diazepam, you're slightly dehydrated, you're taking various steroids, you wake up in the morning, the blood has become sticky as such, and you could have a stroke or a heart attack.
I think as well, one of the things that we touched upon for for 5 minutes or something when I saw you was as well, some of the people that are potentially, you have dedicated bodybuilders who are obviously have everything on point. The training is amazing, their sleep, their nutrition is amazing. But you have kids who are 18, 19, 20 who are going to university or not going to university, but are in that partying stage, who are also taking a little bit of gear because they want to get in shape and they want to look amazing. But what they're not realizing is the bodybuilders that do have a long lasting career and do live until they're 50, 60, 70, they're not smashing lines in the toilet on a Saturday night. And it's absolutely obscene, isn't it?
This is a really good point, because to become a pro bodybuilder, you have to be a genetic freak. It doesn't matter how much gear you take, you are still a genetic freak. You know, Sean Roldan, Darren Yates, but I used to train at the gym when I was 16, and you've rid all of him. When he would be behind the counter, this frightening, moody guy with his ridiculous delts and traps. And when he was 6, after watching Rocky, you go to the gym. For us, we saw Rocky, we've got to go to the gym. That was instrumental in our life. Rambo and Rocky are life-changing for guys my age. And it should be obligatory on everyone to watch Rambo and Rocky. So, I mean, we've even got him here. It has to be there.
So you're sounding old now, Doc. You sound a bit like my dad, but we'll continue.
But so when you went to the gym, you trained, and you had older guys who literally took you under their wing as such. You would do bench with them, or you knew in this particular gym, John was a big deadlifter, this big was a big bencher, and you'd basically go there to train. Now, the problem now is, like you said, there was a very interesting study done in Cardiff, and if you ask any doorman this, when you're on steroids and you've had some ketamine and you've had a few lines, you're freaking dangerous. Now, so you're not living that healthy lifestyle. So you proclaim to live this healthy lifestyle. During the week, you've got pre-workouts, you've got stimulants to keep lean, various drugs to keep lean. You took a few lines. It's a perfect storm waiting to happen. And it does happen. Unfortunately, it does happen. Now, the only time we ever hear like Sean Roldan passed away, Mr. Olympia passed away, we had dozens of phone calls, hey, we want a heart scan, we're worried. And then a week or two later, people forget, and it goes down the pan. For young guys, they can grow. Your endocrine system for a man doesn't mature until you're 25 or 26. So what we hear, you'll often hear the elders or the old people say, or your parents saying, you'll fill up when you get older. That's because your endocrine system is matured at that age. So if you're taking gear under 25, you'll never know what your endocrine system could have peaked at. Very important point. So you'll never really know. Now, if you're bashing in lines as well, and weed, and drinking, and getting hammered on a Friday night in Newcastle, it's not meant to be good, is it? I mean, common sense tells you it's not meant to be good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're in this era now, and I think as well, I'm not obviously going to go down the line of the mental health sort of. I don't want to open that kind of worm, so to speak, on this podcast, but it is something that I'll discuss in a later podcast. But the abuse of that sort of thing is getting more and more prominent. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. One of the things that I posted on Instagram this morning, obviously anticipating that I had you on the podcast, was what are the most controversial topics that you would want me to speak about on a podcast? Now, straight away, there was an abundance of answers, and it was fitness influencers taking gear. My favorite fitness influencer is on gear or doesn't cook. Essentially, do you think fitness influencers or people on Instagram or something like that should have to declare it on Instagram, or do you think they should keep it to themselves?
What you've got here now, you let the elephant out of the bag now, and this is really the $1 million question, isn't it? I don't want to swear, because I was just about to swear here, but it is completely outrageous that fitness guys and people with influence, looking ridiculously big and shredded and tanned, are claiming to be natural. Because this, you see, look, you and I are older, you've been around, you've been a TV star, you've seen the up and downs of it, you've met a lot of people, and you've seen the dark side of lots of the media industry, if you like. You've seen it.
Yeah.
Now, when you're a normal lad at 18 or 19 from Birmingham or Sunderland or Morpeth or, Sheffield, you're just a normal guy. You see these people, you've been training, you're squatting, you're benching, you're having a protein bench, having a creatine, and you put on like a few pounds of muscle. And then you're the coach on the internet, online coach, and saying, hey, listen, look at me, take my protein brand and you'll grow. And you do that and you don't grow.
Yeah.
And then you message him, look, what about steroids? And he say, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll write a small cycle for you. Give this guy. I mean, we've recently done a survey which has been published in the PhD. 71% of coaches sell gear. So
wow.
1,000 people we spoke to. And if anybody wants to see this, they're more than happy to come into my office and look at this data. 71% of people bought gear from their coach. Okay. So it's a self-perpetuating industry now, isn't it? So I'm going to sell you a nutrition plan, your training plan, I'm also going to sell you the gear. So I've got 3 streams of income there. Now, the cycle is written, the pole cycle is written, and you continue again. So these fitness celebs, male and female, it's a lie. Now, nobody believes it anymore that these guys are not taking gear. The problem here is this: you have got people who, let's say your physique, it's quite clear. It's an athletic physique. It's not a bodybuilding physique.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear. Now, if 4 months down the line, you put on 50 pounds of muscle and you're sitting there with no neck, with your vest on, yeah. Hey, I've got this new protein I'm taking, by the way, guys, with rice cakes, and he's put this mass on me. Now, a lot of people would believe that's the case.
But the kids do.
Kids will, because they're not going to be better. By the time they've learned and they've got that knowledge base, it's too late because they're already on the cycle.
Yeah.
Then you've got the whole, if you look at, I can name you, so many people, the fitness from Dubai, not bodybuilders, not powerlifters, who are taking ridiculous amounts of steroids.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I know people, I could name on a piece of paper, if you want to save this for a rainy day, 20 people who'll be very ill or dead in 5 years. I could name those people now. And the tragedy of my job is that you're trying to keep people safe. Now, I'm a sports physiologist, a scientist as such. But you spend so much time in talking to people, trying to keep them safe. Why wouldn't you? It's a natural inclination. You don't want young guys to look great for 2 years and they're ill. Now take another example of the bodybuilding, fitness industry, powerlifting industry. We see these rising stars and they vanish. They don't die, they just vanish off the industry because they've got ill. They've got a kidney problem, they've got a heart problem, they've got enlarged hearts, something's happened, and they've got it. And also the mental health aspect of it, which I will just briefly touch on. Certain drugs will cause mental health problems.
What would those drugs? What would those type of drugs be?
Trenbolone.
Right.
Some of the cutting drugs. If you're cutting and you're hungry, it's very common to take, for example, diazepam or Zopicron to sleep. You took a pre-workout, you can't sleep, you're on train, it's making you sweat, it can give you nightmares, it can have constant sort of sweating, anxiety, stress. So what you do, you take a Zopicron or a diazepam, and then you'll start taking 2 diazepams and 2 Zopiclons, then you'll maybe throw in a bit of Xanax. People let's throw in some, cough medicine. Now, so what you're doing now, you're self-prescribing cocktails to sleep.
Yeah.
Just drop the trend. Just drop the trend. Now remember, 0.00001% of pro bodybuilders. That's if you like, a risk assessment. That's their living. That's what they do. It's like a ratio. It's worth the risk. Most will be okay. 1 or 2.
Do you think that with bodybuilders now, obviously genetics are a massive factor, a huge factor, whether they take gear or not take gear? But do you think the athletes that are on performance enhancing drugs, is it almost a bit of the bodybuilders that do the best are the lucky ones that don't have side effects, and the ones that obviously do just go off the map?
Again, I can show you a CT scan, a heart echocardiogram, ECG, MRI, and an abdomen MRI of a guy who abused steroids for 20 years, and they're perfect.
Yeah.
You would never, this is like having, you know, we've all got a gran or an uncle who used to smoke 100 cigarettes a day, you know, and he was fine.
Mm.
So they're the rare people, but that's why they become champions.
Because they just look.
Yeah.
And obviously hard work and dedication and all of that good stuff.
Huge amount of hard work. I mean, if you, I'm sure you've probably seen that program, the 14 Peaks of the Gurkha. Now, this guy's a freak. If you look at the assessment done at Loughborough University for his cardiovascular output, exercise capacity is ridiculous.
Mm.
Probably half a dozen people in the world like it. Now, Eddie Hall, ridiculous strength. Ridiculous. Thor, ridiculous strength. The two brothers who won the World Strongman, I mean, absolute genetic beasts.
Yeah.
You know, other people would never be like that. This is why they are the World Strongman. This is why I realized at a very young age, you know what, I'm a good gym lifter, that's about it. I'm never going to make a career out of heavy lifting. I may be a big guy, yeah, it's great. I don't want to, you know, I've got the dysmorphia as well. I don't want to be small. I'm a big dog. I want to stay big dog. And we've all got some type of body dysmorphia, some type of body image. You know, we all have that sort of deviancy, if you like. We've all got it. Now, if it's safe and controlled, it's fine. But back to the point of Instagram and social media, most of the research, the most prolific writers, even like myself, we put a lot of blame on social media for the rise in the use of anabolic steroids. A hell of a lot of blame on it.
Yeah. So I suppose my next point, I'm going to lighten the mood a little bit. Yeah. So obviously, everyone who has been to the gym, I think, considers steroids. And if you say that you've never considered it, I think it's a total lie. But obviously my training has changed a lot over the last 7 years. And back when I was probably the first 1 to 3 years of training, if I'd ever considered steroids, it would be to put on muscle, to look better, I'll be honest, to look better on the beach, to look better in general, to look better on Instagram. But now, one of the most curious questions for me was, can performance enhancing drugs actually cure injuries? And is there any out there that cure injuries? Because someone from a functional fitness background now at 26, if I was gonna do something now, it actually probably wouldn't be to look good on Instagram, because I'm quite content with where I'm at right now. It would be more for that factor.
Yeah, I mean, see, remember, anabolic steroids all had a medical use originally. Okay, other than the veterinary ones, but the Anavar medical use, originally used for HIV patients, DECA used for osteoporosis, anemia, testosterone for low testosterone, muscle wasting disease, growth hormone for muscle wasting disease, injury management, peptides. Peptides are a wonder drug. They are fantastic. The speed at which they get rid of inflammation in your joints, it's nothing can work. Naproxen doesn't work that quick. Salvage doesn't work that quick. They're fantastic. So they all have a medical use. Now, the question that then arises here is we try to make 2 and 2 into 5. So the medical use, for example, Anavar was 2.5 mg a day.
Yeah.
Okay. And the DECA was 50 milligrams every 2 weeks. But taking 400 DECA or 600 DECA is no longer a medical use. Now, we often hear a hell of a lot. We see it. I'm sure you hear it. I'm on a TRT dose of testosterone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for listeners, just to play dumb here, can you explain what a TRT dose
TRT is testosterone replacement therapy. Very similar to HRT for women, and it's when men are low in testosterone or deficient in testosterone, or the body's not producing enough testosterone, and they would be the prescribed. Now, this is pharmaceutical testosterone. Okay, on prescription, this is what it looks like. You snap the vial. Now, 1 mil is taken, 1 mil of 250 milligram of testosterone is taken in 3 weeks. If you're lucky, maybe 1 mil every 2 weeks.
And that's like from the GP, sort of. That's what they would prescribe.
From the GP, and this is what you would get. Now, so by taking 1 mil a week, you are not on a TRT dose. because the actual medical dose is 1 mil every 3 weeks or every 2 weeks, depending on your size and weight, your body's requirements. So you have something which has a huge medical benefit. Now, in my research, we proved over 70 illnesses are caused by low testosterone, including mental.
70% of illnesses are caused from low testosterone.
Yeah, from lack of sleep, quite clearly libido, muscle wasting, joint pains, cloudiness, depression, mind fogginess, lack of appetite, cardiovascular disease. If you have low testosterone, you have a much higher chance of getting cardiovascular disease. Your cholesterol, one of the things which testosterone does, it can increase your free cholesterol. At the same time, it can also reduce it. So if you've got low testosterone, so there's lots of factors into this. Now, this is another topic, really, the whole topic of testosterone deficiency is a different topic altogether. But all of these drugs were designed for a medical use, but they were tiny quantities. Also, for example, Anavar was clinically produced, pharmaceutically produced. Today, it's not unusual to see 50 milligrams to 100 milligrams of Anavar being taken daily. In the old days, the medical use was 2.5 mg for muscle wasting disease. So you can see the difference now.
Yeah,
we've gone from 2.5 mg to 100. And to give a very good example of trenbolone, sorry for dragging on here. Trenbolone is used in cattle. 100 mg pellet is put into its ear a month.
A month.
Yeah. So in 3 months, 300 mg, and then the poor cow or the bull is killed and we eat it. So we never really see what happens to it if it gets old. Now, when guys are taking 700 milligrams a week, friend, look at the size of the bull, look at the size of us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, it doesn't take a genius to work out somewhere along the line, something will happen to you. Now, again, I'm not condemning the use and I'm not advocating the use. Everyone can do what they want, but then also be ready for the consequences.
I think this is my own personal experience. So one of my friends, I'm not going to obviously mention who it is, he took trenbolone, and I am really uneducated in comparison to you, obviously, on this, but I actually remember him saying that he was walking around the Metro Centre, which is like our local shopping mall, and he actually said that he felt paranoid that people were following him. That was one of the side effects, because he was so stressed, and he said that he felt like people were following him. Now, this guy was probably 20% body fat plus. Like, he was by no means in shape. And from my little knowledge on anabolic steroids and stuff like that, I've heard that if you are actually out of shape when you start for estrogen and stuff, when you're holding a lot of body fat, it's actually even worse, and the side effects are amplified because they're already out of shape. And this solely came from the big dude in the gym saying, look, if you want to lose weight, take trenbolone. And we both know that that is absolutely not the case. And obviously the side effects are worse.
I mean, when you look, if your steroids should be the icing on the cake, it shouldn't be the cake. If you're fat, lazy, don't eat well, don't train, like myself, then what is trenbolone going to do for you? It's not going to do anything for you, other than maybe slightly make you vascular, you get a few sides and you get a good pump. Now, to give another example, a Napron 50, and years ago, there's an article in a magazine, I'm talking 25 years ago, it said it would put muscle onto a fly. Now, so people would take half a NAP 50, the top guys, the powerlifters, the last 10 days before a show, just half. Okay. So that was 25 milligrams or 20. People are now taking 100 milligrams a day as a pre-workout. I swear to God, I kid you not. And so when they do come to us and, right, okay, what are you guys doing? It's horrific. It's like, guys, what are you doing? Because you're not competing in Britain's Strongest Man or the world's Strongest Man. You're a local gym trainer. You're
trying to go on holiday.
Yeah, you just train in the gym. You could do the same look. And just as a caveat, again, I'm not encouraging it, 125 milligrams a week of testosterone is still way more than your body produces.
Yeah.
You look great on 125 milligrams a week of testosterone, i.e. 250 every 2 weeks, look great and still perform. For 99% of the population. Let's take out the pro bodybuilder, the pro powerlifter, the top class, let's take them all out. Just normal, you and I, normal people. 125 milligrams of test is exponential to you, and you look great on that, and you'll be safe.
Yeah.
Right. The problem now, what happens, as human nature is, if 125 makes you look a certain way, then 250 will make you look a bit better, and then 500 will make it look better, and 700, and then banging in another compound and another compound. So what we see, for example, very common now, guys who aren't competing, that the cycle would be test, train, primo, mast, anavar, clen, T3.
It's just
why? Because they're going to Ibiza. They're going to Ibiza for a piece of coke. For what? Now the expos, I've got to make this point here. When you think that we've got the body power and we have the Arnold Expo, we recently were in the press for the kid at the Arnold Expo at a heart attack. I don't know if
I was there. I was the day before, wasn't
it? Yeah. Now, we paid for this kid to go to the hospital. He had a second heart attack, and luckily he's fine. His mum baked me a great cake, great, bless her. Now, expos are essentially, if you like, rewarding drug use. And I mean, I may not get invited again for saying this, but the whole industry is perpetuated around drug use.
Yeah.
Think about it. All the supplement manufacturers, the t-shirt guys, everything is around guys who are taking. Which sport in the world can you say, yeah, everyone take as much gear as you want?
Well, this is going to be a tricky question for me, because I think it's going to really get some people's backs up. But one thing you said to me, and obviously there's no names here, so it doesn't really matter, but you were actually, and this was astounding for me, because CrossFit, okay, you know that I obviously like a little bit of CrossFit and I follow it heavily. You said to me that the females were the most abusive right now that you'd seen in the last 12 months, which shocked me. Because I think that was one thing, that the way CrossFit is sort of portrayed, it's a health, the whole training format was for health, but now it's kind of like how long is a piece of string, and then you find someone gets one number, and someone can run a 5-minute mile and have a 100-kilo snatch, and now it's like the standard is 120. But that was one thing that absolutely blew me out the water when you said that.
But one of the things, if you look, I don't know if that's visible, for years we had, give or take, the weightlifting records were like this. And then recently for women, they've just gone through the roof. Now, that's not because they're drinking vitamin water or, there's a new supplement on the market. It's due to the use of gear. There was a huge stigma with women taking gear before because they're male androgens. Now you can go onto YouTube and a cycle for powerlifting women or strongman women, and there's 100 guys out there doing cycles.
But CrossFit specifically, there's not. And you are saying that, obviously I want to get it on the podcast. You said that the women
CrossFit girls are taking anabolic steroids globally. Now, if you look at their physiques and the structure of the physiques, now a lot of people look at a physique, they see a guy who's lean, say he's taking gear. No, he's not. He's just lean. He just freaking trains hard, eats well, and he lives a life. Now, with the girls, it's got extremely popular for anavar and primo. Unfortunately, I've seen girls taking tren, testosterone, sustanon, and then you get to that huge body dysmorphia and really mental health issues. There's one girl, she actually wouldn't have an issue of me naming her because she's doing a podcast with us soon about how the gear ruined her life.
Yeah.
But I'll let her do that herself now. She was training in the gym, her partner encouraged her to take anavar, and the body starts getting curved. The ass is curved, the legs are coming out, they're getting tighter, look great. From there, she went on to primo. legs will come out, the acids come out more, the whole glute training business. I mean, I think look, most of the videos, it looks like the girl only trained glutes, nothing more than that. The whole videos, she's looking great. Slowly, let me do a competition. And she was a strong girl anyway.
Yeah.
So she started taking some NPP. From NPP, this is her own word, from NPP, she started taking a bit of tests. Only 30 milligrams, because some coaches out there are saying, well, 30 milligrams a week is okay for a woman. She started that. From there, it just got worse and worse and worse. Ended up becoming infertile, lots of health problems, mental health problems, relationship went, and everything was really pretty disastrous. And that was in a 5-year cycle. But what she said interestingly, she said, I didn't see myself going into that. When I first took VAR, I was going to say 10 mg a day. I'm never going to take any injectable. But she said that the sort of industry sucked me in, and this is how I became. And like with I suppose with everybody who takes a line, I'm only going to have one line a week. It might go to 2 and to 4, because there is an addictive personality behavior. Now, some of the studies, if you look at it, people who've had an addiction to psychoactive drugs will more than likely have an addiction to anabolic steroids. People with addictive personalities, they are behavior patterns to this stem from self-image from a child, abuse from a child. I don't mean sexual abuse, I mean being bullied. The classic old, this year when I was a kid, back in whenever, there's a little child atlas, and the figure was this man, this boy kicking sand in somebody's face. And then he'd bought the chest expanders, and now he'd become this huge guy, and he'd had this guy by the throat. That was the actual advert. So we all bought the bull worker. If anyone's dad, you remember the bull worker? Yeah. My dad had one. And, we've got, everybody did this bull worker thinking. So the industry's always worked on people's anxieties. They've always worked on people's anxieties. They've also worked on, now, it was always traditionally thought that females have anxieties on how they look, but men have as well. And in the social media age, it's...
I can firsthand say that the one thing that obviously winds me up massively is I have the same coaching knowledge year round, but every year, as soon as it hits about April, May, when I start turning it on and getting a little bit leaner, I have so many more signups to my online coaching. And that is enough pressure for some people. Some people, when you think of the actual price of anabolic steroids, it's cheaper than protein powders in some places. And that is one of the pressures for everyone. I can firsthand relate to that, because that almost directly has a direct impact on your income, which is crazy.
If you think now, the way we've talked previously, you come to me and say, hey, Bob, I want some coaching. I want to take steroids. I'll say, listen, son, you don't need them. Let's get a year of training under your belt first. He doesn't want to train with me. Why would he? Put him off straight away. Yeah. Hey, I've got this cycle here. What do you think? I should, someone gave me this cycle. Now, son, you don't need it. Let's get some good food in, get some good protein in, right? 4,000 calories a day, eat, train heavy, and we'll go from there. He doesn't want that. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? Now, if you're a bodybuilding coach, that's what you do. You tell them. Now, what would be interesting currently, and I'll give you the news flash here. We've had a document given to us by Ken Constabulary. Now, somebody ended up with failed kidneys, only a young man. And the coach who wrote the cycle, this young man, I think his uncle is a QC. But you don't mess about with a QC. And the QC wants to do a private prosecution against this coach.
Wow.
There's nothing within UK law, because it's illegal to sell steroids, it's not illegal to use them.
Right.
However, if somebody has advised someone to take, whatever cycle they're taking, there's a duty of care somewhere along the line.
Right.
But if this prosecution happens, if it happens, it'll be a game changer.
It'll change the full industry.
Or someone dies at a big competition.
Yeah.
At a big competition. But the problem is people have died at big competitions and nothing's happened. Mohammed Benazir died behind stage. ones that died. I mean, so many people have died at competitions, but the way, in my mind, the physique look or the classic look is getting more and more popular. Now you take the Lee Haney's era, Albert Beckles, Rich Kaspari, Lee Brada. Today's physique, Dorian Yates. Can anybody say today's physique matches Dorian's? No chance.
Yeah.
No chance at all. And okay, I'm biased to Dorian, of course I am. But nobody can say, you know, in my mind, they match it. But they still didn't use the doses which people are using today.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. I think
And
the old school.
in my 15 years of doing this, you know, commercially fine, but for a long time looking at this, we've seen the doses go up like this. But I haven't seen the physiques getting better. Now, the other thing is this. There's obviously we do blood tests and cardiac check, and I think this is a really important point for the viewers. There is no point in doing a blood test if you're not going to take the advice.
Yeah.
Save the money and buy yourself some more gear. Because it is pointless. If we've seen that your kidney functions are dropping, your liver functions, your liver slightly stressed, your blood, but you're in your 4th week for prep, and you've still got another 8 weeks to go. But look, I can't cut my dose in prep, but don't freaking have a blood test.
Yeah.
Don't, because the microfilm. You see what blood tests will do, and the industry is becoming like this now, and it's a bad trend. It's a really bad trend. Here's my blood test, I'm okay. No, you're not. Because those microphysiological changes in your kidney, the scarring, the blood test doesn't show that. The scarring in your testicles, the blood test doesn't show that. The scarring in your heart. So if you look at, I don't know if you can see this little heart here. Yeah. Now, this muscle thickens. This muscle thickens, this thickens, and this thickens. So the cavity inside here gets less and less. No blood test will show you that.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm just explaining this for the listeners rather than the viewers. Yeah. But essentially, when that cardiac muscle is growing, what obviously happens with all anabolic steroids, you're saying it puts a lot more pressure, on the heart.
But basically, the blood is trying to go through. There's not enough cavity there. There's atherosclerosis, which we know steroids increase atherosclerosis. So these microphysiological changes are over a period of time. Now, if you had an echo scan today, for example, and you're still on a cycle for next year, a year later, your scan last year is pointless. Doesn't mean anything. So if, for example, you've got a thickening of 17 mil, next year you've got 19. But when I had my scan last year, I was fine. What should happen ideally at the high level, a CT scan should be done. The federation should say, right, we want a CT scan. We're an echo, we want a CT scan. And if you're above a certain amount, we are not going to let you compete.
That's a really, really good concept.
However, the industry is dead then, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all tell you for a fact, none of the top guys will pass that.
Yeah. Well, that is one of the things, isn't it? You would get the fan favorites and the ones with maybe contracts with certain big brands. If they couldn't compete, then there would be no fans there, would there?
Yeah. Now, but what would happen over a transitional period of 5 years or 10 years, the sport would be so much more healthier. Yeah. The doses would drop. The guys would look better. I mean, when you have like Dallas Carver, when Dallas Carver died, the monster guy, teenager, the monster. It was inevitable that this was going to happen. But the industry is responsible. The sponsors are responsible. Now, you can say, Doc's got old, he's an old man, he's got old views about responsibility and liability. But in what other industry in the world could I give you drugs and something happened to you and I'm not liable? Maybe one industry in the world where that could happen.
Well, exactly.
And then people are saying, well, why is this not an Olympic sport? Why don't we get credibility? Well, why would you?
Yeah, straight away there would be a hell of a lot of people getting caught, getting popped, wouldn't there?
Well, they did one Olympia which they drug tested many years ago. The worst Olympia ever in history. It was terrible. And but it's like, if, for example, like I did a discussion or a debate with somebody who's currently actually had a heart attack, a guru who did. And I remember saying to him, "Look, you're going to have a heart attack one of these days," and he did. He died. He didn't die. He just got very ill. The problem here now is this: how many deaths are enough? So if you've got 1 million steroid users in the UK, but we're getting 200 deaths, we get more than that on tramadol or diazepam. Is it really a big deal? This is the thing. Now, for the families who've lost that person, it is a big deal. It was avoidable, but this is the argument, isn't it? Is it really a big deal or not? Well, to me, yes, it is. Young men are dying. Now, the other factor, side effect is fertility.
That's a huge one with the females, obviously, and one massive side effect that probably they're not as aware of, because you just start small, don't you?
Exactly.
Like what we were saying before.
And now, for men, it's a bigger problem. Currently, one of the studies I'm working on is 1,497 men under 28 were all having fertility treatment. They all use steroids.
Yeah.
So, and we all know guys in the industry who are desperate because they've grown up from that. What happened when you've been in this business a long time? It gets to a stage where a lot of people just had enough of it.
Yeah.
You just had enough of it. So now they meet a partner, they want to have children, but they can't. So currently there's just under 1,500 people we're doing a study on who are undergoing fertility treatment. Another side effect of steroids. But this is where the plus part comes again. Well, people say, look, John's took care for 20 years, he's got kids, he hasn't had a heart attack. And you can't use that with all individuals. John maybe has a genetic ability to absorb more, his receptors may be better. We can't work that way. It's like I like riding motorbikes and I'm a crap motor, I'm a rubbish motorbike rider. If I rode a Hayabusa on a straight line, I'm dead. Yeah. There's no doubt when I'm dead. But I know guys who go around bends and they'll be fantastic on it.
Yeah.
It's not the bike's fault, it's the rider's fault. So it's, some people just have a natural propensity and great ability to absorb gear, and they have great genetics and they become champions. Yeah. You will never get a guy with crap genetics becoming a champion in any sport. That's the way it is.
Nice. So one of my last questions was about bloods. Now, obviously, you took my bloods. You did every check under the sun, and it was amazing to see the process and see how it worked. But what I wanted to talk about was, what are the major benefits? Forget people on gear, forget people who are taking stuff, but like,
forget the gear.
What are the major benefits to someone who's not on gear that wants to get the bloods? Why would you get it done, and what can it benefit in maximizing performance?
One of the things, we often get maligned as the steroid company. In fact, 15% of our clients are anabolic steroid users. The rest are just normal people. Now, the advantage of getting your bloods done, if your GP won't do them, you find out what your vitamin levels are like. You find out what your kidney levels are like, what your liver levels are like. For men, what your prostate is like. We've had countless cases. We've picked up prostate tumors and cancers very, very quickly. For example, let's just say that you've been training for months, you're not really getting any gains. We do your blood test. We can find out from there what your vitamin D levels are like, what your folic acid levels are like, what your B vitamins are like, your whole B complexes are like, what your hormones are like, whether you're dehydrated or not, whether you're drinking enough water or not. So all of these we can then fix.
One of the things you said to me, which I was astounded at, you could tell from my bloods that I wasn't having enough carbohydrates, and that does make sense, because for me as an individual, I know, because I'm very self-aware and I track my nutrition, that I find the protein and the fats pretty easy, but carbs are one of the things I struggle with. But how did you find that? Like, what are you looking for there?
Because one of the markers, if it's out of sync, it's always down to due to carbs. Now, this is the aspect of often when people will say, let's have a debate about this issue. I've got 27,000 blood results. I don't want to debate with anybody. The data doesn't lie. We've got a logarithm, which we've got funding from. I don't get any of the money, but $400,000 has been funded to work this logarithm out. Some poor bugger has to put in 1.3 billion numbers into a system. And It's a 3-year project. For 3 years, they're putting these numbers in, and we'll get a logarithms of testosterone, of hormones, of vitamins, of how things work out. On myself, I've took testosterone, and I've done a blood test every day for 90 days at the same time to see all the minor fluctuations. Now, we've done this in a controlled experiment where 5 of us took different doses, and every day at the same time we did a blood test to see how all the minor fluctuations happen. So it's the bloods are the first part. Then, for example, we did the arterial check on you, which tells the age of your arteries, and you were 2 years younger than you are. Now, that also indicates to us that you're very fit, you're healthy, your heart has a good exercise capacity, and your veins have the elasticity as they should do. So you're a very healthy, young guy. Now, if you'd been taking gear, the age would be different because the gear does harden the arteries. Then we did an ECG on you, which was perfect. So what these things are more, what COVID has taught all of us, we have to look after our health. The NHS isn't there really for us, unless you've got the funds to go privately, you've got a lot of money. So these annual checks are great as a general basis for your overall health. Now, one of the things I'll give an example of, we recently had somebody constant fatigue, not sleeping well, and body's aching. The doctor said they've got chronic fatigue syndrome. So we did a toxicology test on her, and we found out that she had a filling, and the filling had been leaking. Her body had high levels of mercury and also high levels of aluminium.
Wow.
The filling's been removed. 10 days later, she got nothing wrong with her. You would never have known that unless you've done that blood test. So you've got food allergy tests, gut tests, stool tests. We've even now got a cancer marker. So 70 types of cancers can be picked up now through a blood test without symptoms, which is a year or two before you get that cancer. You see, so that the technology is there. A lot of it is American driven, because if it's a financial viability to it, the science will do it. If there's a monetary value, science will develop to it. Now, yes, these are all private treatments, but when you think you can get a high level annual check done, for 400 or 500 quid, it's not a huge amount of money.
Definitely not.
People spend more on sniffing a night. It's not that big a deal.
I think for someone like me personally, I mean, I'm someone that obviously cares about my health a lot more, but the fact that you said that to me, the fact of like the footballer Christian Eriksen thing, I actually came to you because I said I felt tired, and I said I feel a little bit off compared to normal. Can you sort of tell me? And you were talking about the carbs. So I think Transform Now is obviously maybe gets tarnished a little bit with the steroid sort of brush because of obviously the big names in the industry. But like, I think getting bloods done, especially how behind the NHS can be in comparison to the American companies and the German companies you said were way, way ahead with research as well. I think it's worth the money.
We've just launched a new DNA test, which I'll send you one. It's looking at thousands of your DNA for performance, but it's sent abroad, it's not done in the UK.
Yeah.
All stool tests are sent abroad, they're not done in the UK. Allergy tests that are not done. There's certain metal toxicology. We had another guy, he sprays cars for a living. Fantastic. I mean, the guy does the top end cars. But over the years, the paint's been going into his system, and sandpaper in the cars or whatever. So he had huge amounts of aluminium inside of him, huge amounts, which was making him constantly fatigued and mind fog. So then he literally bought this like chemical flute now, which he wears. We spoke to a couple of consultants in London, and what we have 7 consultants who are working with us, cardiologists, endocrinologists, urologists. It's not just us. Now, what we are about is making you better than you are, whoever you are. So the whole part, for example, we do mental coaching for mental health guys. It's another debate altogether, the issue of masculinity, of what men should be like, etc., especially in this modern day society. But we have 2 counsellors who we work with. We have a psychiatrist who we work with. Is because sometimes, you know yourself, somebody just needs a pat on the back sometimes. They need a friendly word. You know, we do in our gym, we do a Christmas dinner every year. Now, you know, I'm a Muslim. I don't even celebrate Christmas. I eat the food. I do the sales, but I don't. But when we do that dinner, we have dozens of people who come for the Christmas dinner because they've got nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a case of sometimes, you know, a helping hand to someone instead of knocking them down is what they need. And we're transformed. Nice about transforming your life in every aspect. And, you know, without plugging it, but we all do need sometimes that firm talking to, that person to say, listen, guys, stop doing this, stop doing that. Now, when we see anxiety affects testosterone levels. The anti-anxiety drugs affect testosterone levels. Long-term anti-inflammatory drugs affect testosterone. Long-term weed will lower your testosterone. It'll raise your estrogen as well. So all of these, and again, I don't want to get into a debate with people about this. I've got the data there, but all of these things is, you know, we've got to look after our own health because the NHS won't. It's not going to do it.
Yeah. Right. Well, thank you very much. That was absolutely amazing, and I want people to get involved with getting the bloods done more. So this is your chance to plug. If you want to tell us where can people find you? Where can people find you if they want bloods done?
We have a clinic in Newcastle, Surrey, Birmingham, Market Harborough, Knightsbridge, which I shouldn't be saying this, but it costs a lot more in Knightsbridge. So give me a call first, and I'll sort your deal out. And we also have one in Dubai, and we're now open in France now as well.
It's amazing. Hopefully there'll be some listeners all around the world, so that'll be a massive benefit.
The war's over first.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
the sports science in Eastern Europe is also at a different level.
Yeah,
like it really is. We're like 20 years behind in England compared to what the sports science is over there.
No, that's good. Well, Doc, thanks for coming on the show. I've really enjoyed it. I wanted to do that one, even if it's just for me, never mind everybody else, but I'm sure they will enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone's got any questions, they can just email me on there and we'll help.
Amazing. Good stuff. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Later.